My name is Will Hankey, and obviously there's a lot going on with the COVID situation, and a lot of us are working from home or maybe in different environments than we're used to. And so I wanted to bring in somebody that can maybe help us out with that a little bit, give us some direction, give us some semblance of normalcy if that's possible, and also wanted to talk to her about cash flow and some different things related to maybe projects that you have that are now on hold, or you just haven't got paid for the rest of it and you can't get paid for it. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. So my guest today is Kathy Sexton, a productivity expert and business coach with over 17 years of experience helping business owners sort through situations to make them more productive and profitable. Kathy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here and share my knowledge.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So are you highly in demand at the particular moment?
I think everybody's kind of scared to do anything right now.
Yeah, it's a little different,
Yeah.
little different world. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, but nonetheless, lots of business owners that are in this current situation and need to kind of work through it. So hopefully we can come up with some great tips today for them.
Okay, great.
Tell me a little bit about your business before we jump into this.
Okay, so I am what I call myself a reforming workaholic. Got very, very ill working in the corporate world and decided to veg out on my own. And people always ask me, well, isn't that stressful? Because basically stress is what caused the illness. And I said, yes, but it's my stress. I have control over it. So through the years, my business has evolved from doing bookkeeping for small businesses to now where I coach and help them with not only productivity, time management, that kind of stuff, business coaching, and then also creating a more profitable business.
Love that. And what's your website?
TheProductivityExperts.com.
Okay. TheProductivityExperts.com. Okay, cool. So let's jump in. And first of all, let's talk about the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, I guess is what they call that, right?
Right.
For those of us that are typically not working at home, but all of a sudden we are working at home, what are some good tips around setting up a temporary office?
Yeah, so if you've not been working from home prior, the best thing you can do is find a quiet, preferably private space to work, even if it's a small little area. I've known people use a walk-in closet, if they needed to, but the more private you can make it, the better off it's going to be for you, your family, and just setting up that area that's what you're going to do and work in. I think it's important to have all of the tools that you need right there. So don't share your tape and your scissors and stuff with the whole family because they'll be hunting in your closet or wherever you're working from. But I think the biggest thing is to think about, we don't know how long this all is going to last. And I predict we're going to find a whole lot more virtual working from home going forward because of all of this. I think it's going to force those that weren't going that way to be that way now. So start thinking about that. Start thinking about how, if this becomes permanent or for a long term, where am I going to work and how am I going to work?
Yeah, I love that. Tim Ferriss was talking about working virtual probably, 8 or so years ago when his 4-Hour Workweek book came out. And that was part of his plan, was start working virtually and show your employer that you can do it and the business, the work will still get done, all that kind of stuff. So kind of interesting how this is really turning around.
Right.
My wife works for a big company and she works from home 1 day a week. Well, she did work from home 1 day a week, but now 5 days a week. And it's amazing. Everything seems to be going fairly smoothly for that business. So
yeah,
quite different. So let's talk about working from home now, that for people that already work from home. but suddenly there's kids and spouses in the mix.
Right. So I think, and what I talk about will also, those people who are just currently working from home, I think they're going to have a little bit more adjustment. But those people that have been working from home for a long time, they've had their own space, they had their own quiet time. Now they have, as you said, spouses and kids in the mix. And how do we handle all this? And I think the number one first thing that you need to consider, and that is communication. It is all about communication and clarity of, who's going to be responsible. So let's just talk a spouse being home. So like you said, you and your wife now are both, at home. You've always worked at home, for a long time anyway. Yeah. And so, this is your space, you know what you need to do. But now maybe there's children at home, maybe not, but it's how do we do this together? And how do we respect each other's time, each other's privacy, and who takes care of the kids when, and all that kind of stuff. So it really, I think it'll save a marriage, under this stressful time, because it's stressful no matter where you're at in this whole mix, but it really is about the communication.
Right.
And then I think secondly, thinking about the kids. So and I think that's a big thing that we need to talk about is, you're used to going into your office possibly and working all day long. I know I do. But now, they want your attention. Spouse wants your attention. When's it time to eat? I'm bored, all those things. So I think it's around the planning, and the communication with them. And maybe instead of planning on working, 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever, you no matter what, this situation or not, think about working in 90-minute sections, because then you're more productive, only working at 90 minutes and then taking a short break, or as long a break you want. But in this instance, it might need, depending on the age of your children, it might be you need to break down into 30-minute increments. But I think it's about planning and, setting the stage for the day, maybe have a project with the kids. This is a good time for us to look at how can we become more of a family type situation now. I think this is going to bring families closer together, but we need to kind of start doing that differently. So are we going to do a game? Are we going to have a craft project? And then what time are we going to do that? Maybe there's a movie time. So movie time starts at this time. That's a time for you to be able to work in your office and focus uninterrupted. So I really think it's about the planning and the communication and creating that schedule every morning. This is how it's going to be. And now we're at 24/7 basically but 7 days a week. So, our what used to be our maybe, 8 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever those hours were, now it's longer. So we can split that day up into little sections. And I think it's really important that we really, really look at all of this and how we can be better as a family and better as a business owner in this time of crisis, if that's what you want to call it, or chaos.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's fantastic to set some guidelines. I know that my wife, she's already texted me twice today wanting more coffee, and so here's her thing. You are your own boss, Will. So you can get up and go get coffee. I can't. I'm tied to this laptop. So kind of funny to watch that. I can't goof off as much as I was because I don't want her to know that I goof off during the day.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Yeah.
So I have to stay in here and pretend like I'm busy all day, right? So I don't
but having that private area, you can do that, and they don't really know.
Right. Yeah, we basically commandeered 2 bedrooms. Of course, I've always been in one as an office, so she's commandeered the other one. But it's working. I love the guidelines idea. I think setting those, and I'm not in a situation where I have young kids, but I can imagine that has to be really tough. For our situation, she's basically tethered from 7 to 4, minus lunch. My situation is different. I can work whenever, so maybe it's some sort of staggering thing that could take place.
Right. I think, okay, I'm going to take care or, be in control of the kids at this time, and you can, you're going to do it at this time. I think it's really about, explaining. I think a big thing is explaining to kids that just because you're home and not at school, this isn't vacation. I still have to work. I still have to do things. So maybe it's, when you're doing that focus time, you have a note on your door, mommy or daddy's, at work right now. So no interruptions. But I think it's all in the communications and the planning.
Yeah. So let's talk about those interruptions. Those distractions or accidents are bound to happen.
Mm-hmm.
How can we deal with those and still stay on track with what we're doing?
So I think this really does this is how we should do it all the time, when distractions come, because they are going to come. So the first thing is to know what you need to get done today. So what are those no more than 3 things? What are those 3 things that you need to get done so that when the interruption comes, right back where to go, go to. I think it's also knowing that we tend to overbook ourselves. So my whole thing has always been, don't book yourself more than 75% of your day.
Okay.
Now, in this situation, maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's 60 or 50%. But knowing that you have, your different hours, but realize that things are going to happen. Johnny's going to hit Sally in the head with the baseball, bat or whatever, or, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, and you have to deal with it. But the whole key is to know what you're trying to accomplish and not have 50 different things around, in this big old long list. It's always about focus. So narrow down, what are those top things I want to get done today and only today? What's that one thing I want to happen today? Then you can go to the next thing.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing I've heard of is time blocking. And we actually had a question from Callie that said, I've heard of grouping things you do into chunks and then work on a chunk for a period of time. What are some common chunks I should put on my list?
So what I really recommend when I'm working with a client is that, as much as you can, you want to do that. Time blocking, time mapping, it's called a lot of different things. One of the big things, so I don't forget to say this, is I love to color code my calendar.
Okay.
So that I can look at it at a glance and know how much time I'm working a client, how much, I got a lot of personal stuff going on or whatever, or meeting time, whatever that is. So mine's color coded, no more than maybe 5 colors, but you can group things. So it's really, for me, I'm very visual, so that helps. But the first thing is most important is, what's your self-care? That needs to go on your calendar first. So is it exercising and you get up a little bit earlier and do it, or are you going to do it at lunchtime? I know, our friend Dale does, that's his lunchtime. He goes and he, does his exercise in the middle of the day because after work, it's, he's wore out and doesn't want to do it. So find that time. But those are the things that need to be on your calendar, your time with your family, and then you can fill in around it. People who have different types of businesses, maybe, or that they do some project work and some client work, you can separate those out into days. You can separate those out into time elements. Working on your email. I got interviewed this morning about email and, blocking that time to do that, setting that time aside. So, 2, 3, 4 times a day max that you should be working on email, so that when you do sit down to do it, you have the time to do it and you're dealing with it versus looking at it, oh, I'll deal with that later. Look at the next one, look at the next one, look at the next one. And then before you know it, you've not dealt with any of them. So, scheduling those, blocking out those times. And I think as far as how much time at one time, as I said before, 90 minutes is the max you should, stay concentrating in a project. But it's going to depend on the individual. Some people can't stay concentrated that long. So, maybe it's 15 minutes here, a half an hour there, but think about what works for you and block out and make sure you have that extra time for variation. So say I'm going to work on a project at 2 o'clock this afternoon and an interruption comes, right? And I can't do that. The key there is that I move it. I don't ignore it and not do it. I move that time to something else.
Okay.
So if you're going to do with your email, you don't have time to deal with it in the morning, move it to that. Make sure there's maybe a little extra time in the afternoon when you're going to do it.
That's awesome. I love the idea of only checking your email a couple times a day. I'm probably not going to follow that advice, but I do love that advice. It is so hard not to check your email all the time, or whatever that distraction is, and it becomes teaching yourself to quit checking Facebook 8 times a day, or whatever it is.
Right. And so you can put some timers on your calendar and it'll remind you to go do it. The biggest thing and the biggest reason why you want to do that is when we talk about multitasking. And of course, when you're working at home and you get kids and everything else, that's going to really be multitasking, right? But if you're working in a zone and you think, oh, I wonder if so-and-so responded or whatever, you broke that focus. Yeah. And so it can take up, and this is statistically shown, that it can take up to 21 minutes for you to get back into that same point of focus that you were when you got distracted. So, the least amount of distractions, the way you can keep yourself focused with a timer, with a reminder, okay, it's time to take a break, whatever that is, you can stay focused a lot easier. I use a program called Focus at Will. And I guess that's for you, Will, right? But it's especially music to help you keep focus. And when I turn that on, I don't use it all the time, but when I turn it on, I can just stay in the zone a whole lot easier.
Interesting. So I have heard some things around music, and particularly to listen to music that doesn't have lyrics.
Uh-huh.
Is that legit?
Well, let's talk. That's very interesting. You should ask that. So I was in a meeting one time, and the facilitator gave us an exercise to do, and we all started working, and he put on some real soft music. I like, Kenny G or Intermittent. Okay. But the gal next to me, I thought she's going to jump out of her skin. I can't stand this. Well, she was a real high ADHD person.
Oh, interesting.
So that calming music it made her jumpier. Where for me, somebody else is talking and I'm trying to concentrate. Forget it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So it really is about the person, but the music, if I'm playing like oldies music or playing some music, I might want to sing along. Well, that is a distraction. So I think, and that Focus at Will is all instrumental. So it is, and it's at different spaces and different types of, if you tend to be an ADHD person, there's your type of music. So it's kind of different types of music for different types of people.
Okay. Awesome. Very interesting. So another thing you mentioned was, work for 90 minutes or whatever that number is, and then stepping away. Let's talk about that stepping away portion of your day. What do you recommend somebody do during that time to kind of keep their sanity?
So, for us here in St. Louis, the weather's not been very spring-like yet.
Right. Yeah.
It'll get here soon. But the best thing you can do is just walk outside, get a little sunshine, get some fresh air, especially as much as we're being cooped in right now. Talk to your neighbor from far, or, and especially the kids, let them get outside and run around. They can't play with neighbors, but they can play, with themselves, and, you can play catch or whatever, but just that activity and that fresh air. If that's like for us raining or you can't do that, just going in and maybe sitting down and relaxing a little bit, have a cup of tea, maybe read a chapter in a book. I mean, just something to change your pace. And even if it's just walking around the house, just to kind of get your mental state a little bit different and then come back and try and focus again.
Okay. So you see, I would get distracted and start cleaning the garage or something like that. And then, and then,
That does happen. So that's for those people. That's when you put a timer on your phone and it says go back to work. And after 10, 15 minutes, your timer tells you it's time to go back to work instead of stopping to work.
yeah. I've had that happen where I missed a phone call because I just got distracted and started cleaning the garage.
Yeah.
So one last question before we kind of switch over to finances, cash flow, stuff like that. For people that have a team, and maybe, well, at this point, it's probably a virtual team, whether they like it or not. What are some of your favorite tools to kind of keep the team cohesive and energized?
Well, I'll tell you, I learned about Slack, I think, from you years ago, right?
Yeah.
When I first started. And then I created my own Slack, but I never really used it.
Okay.
And just recently, not recently, but in the last year or so, our NSA chapter has a Slack for the board. I'm on an accountability group. We have a Slack for the board. So I'm going, why am I not using this for my team? And so we started using it instead of emails and stuff because I try to tell people limit the emails. And so that's been awesome for us. Real quick, questions, answers can be done. You can use it with clients. You can use it with your staff. So I think that is, for me right now in our team, that's the number one. I know my daughter uses Jabber she works for one of the big medical hospitals here in St. Louis. Their team uses like Jabber. So one of those instant message time chat type things I think is great. And then having some kind of a project software, a Basecamp or Asana. I'm using Freedcamp so that people know, projects that everybody's working on and kind of the state of those projects. I got asked this morning on that interview about, can't you put all this stuff in one thing? And, I just don't, I don't know of anything that works as well as some individual things. And I think they're totally different because she said, can you use your, Outlook for everything? I go, no, I can't. I guess there's something out there I don't know about, but I think certain things are used for certain things are more effective.
Yeah, I'd agree. We use a project management system called Teamwork. And probably one of the best things I ever did for my business was get everybody in there and have all the projects and all the task lists and all these things in there. Teamwork has a CRM component. They also have a help desk component, and they also have a chat component very similar to Slack. We're still using Slack because that's what we've been using for years, and that's just where everybody's at. But that's the only one I've found that's even close. But even with Teamwork, you're still gonna, like you said, use other pieces of software because nobody's doing it all.
Right.
But Slack is slack.com. Teamwork is teamwork.com. I'm not sure about Jabber, so I will look that up, put that in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Curious to see what that is. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about cash flow. How do we handle what could be a devastating effect in our business when our business does take a huge shift like this?
Well, I've had this conversation with my clients in the last 2 weeks, right?
I can imagine so.
And the biggest thing, and this is just for everyone and not just business owners, I really think that we really need to step back and really realize, and it's easy to say this, but I mean, really recognize that we're all in this together, right? And if we go down the path of, oh, poor me, or oh, poor my business, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
So knowing that we have had crises in our lives before, some of us personally, but, even globally and, nationally, and they all pass, right? And we all come out of it in a different model. And like I said, I think it's going to be more of a virtual model going forward.
Yeah.
But just remember that we are all in this together and people understand. And if you are a business owner, it's so important I keep telling my clients this, you have to keep moving forward. You can't stop. You can't look at this as a vacation. You can't look at this as a time that, oh, clients can't pay me or I can't get new clients at this time. Do what you can do. Maybe there's been a project or a book you've wanted to work on. This is the time that you need to stay focused, and maybe you have to cut back on expenses that you don't really want to, but with the social media and things that are free that you can do, just staying in front of your clients, doing things like this will that helping your clients with information and just to help them to keep moving forward. But I think that's the biggest key. Like I had one of my clients I talked to yesterday, she goes, well, I'm thinking about doing a sale. I go, why waste that?
Yeah.
Now I said, plus when are you going to put it out there? Because she does a lot of stuff on social media and she goes, well, I'm not getting the views that I got. I said, that's where you need to focus then. Keep those views going, keep people talking about you, keep front of mind so that when this starts to break a little bit and people feel like, okay, I can now move forward, then you're still out there and you've not given up. And there are going to be a lot of small businesses that collapse through all this. And that's really sad, but don't be one of them. Try your best to keep things moving forward.
I think the fact of the idea of keep moving forward is going to make it easier when we get out of this as well. Mm-hmm. Because there's not going to be this sudden surge of all the stuff that we have to get done.
Right.
At least if we're moving forward and we're getting things in place, we'll probably have that somewhat under control when they open the gates.
Right. And as I said, it's a perfect time to spend 15 minutes, half an hour a day working on that book that you've always talked about working on. Because when you come out of this, you're going to have a book to sell, right? Yeah. Or that project, that looking at that new business model, whatever that is that you've already planned for 2020. Now is the time to really say, okay, how can I make this happen? And maybe you have a little bit more time to work towards that.
Yeah. So looking back, hindsight is 2020. What is something that a business should have been doing 6 months ago from a cash flow perspective?
From a cash flow perspective, it's basically part of a program that I do, but they really need, as we tell our children, I told my daughter, before she moved out, you need 6 months of salary set aside. You don't know what will happen to your job, right? Luckily, she's in healthcare and, she's not going away anywhere time soon. But she's not like that with everybody else. So, and when she went to buy a house, she had the money to do it, and be able to do that. So setting what I call a reserve fund up and creating that so that when we do have these trying times, if it's this, maybe things aren't this major going forward, but we all have those dips in our business. And when you have those resources to fall back on, can make a huge difference. It can make the difference between making it and breaking it.
So tell me a little bit about the program you mentioned earlier. Is that the Miracle Money Method?
Yeah, our Miracle Money Method. I'm getting ready to launch the virtual program of that just almost any day now. We're getting really, really close.
Okay.
But it is a program that systematically where you make sure you're paying yourself, and maybe that gets less right now, but you're setting aside money for paying yourself, putting away money for taxes, putting money away for profit, that reserve account that I was talking about, and learning how to be very savvy with what's left over. So, I got asked this question, well, that's not going to work during this period, right? Well, no, it even works better during this period because it's all based on percentage of what you have coming in.
Okay.
So it's based on that percentages. So if you've got, where you used to maybe get $5,000 a week and maybe you're now getting, $2,000 a week or a month or whatever, all those are based on what is actually coming in. So it works both ways. That when things are good and when things are bad, it's not going to be, it still hurts when you don't have the money coming in, but the process doesn't change at all. You
Okay.
don't have to make any adjustments in it except for, the amount that's going to go into every pot.
Right, right. That was going to be my question. So from a perspective of changing where money goes, it's kind of fluid, right? You can change your percentages of what's going into profit, what's going into operating expenses, that kind of stuff, because you never know when this is going to happen. So, things like that, it has to be fluid, I would assume.
Yeah. And because it's based on percentages, it goes with whatever's happening. And again, like you said, you can even change the percentages if you need to,
Yeah.
the debt reduction portion of it. So when we come out of this, those people who's had to take out loans to pay employees and things like that through that, it's all built into that whole program.
Okay. So how does somebody find out more about your program or your business?
So I would suggest that they, email me at Kathy the Productivity Expert. You can go to my website, and I've got a working quiz out there. We have some other stuff. We're getting ready to do some, more webinar type stuff that we're going to be available for people. So
Okay.
Visiting my website is a great way. And then once you get on my list, you'll know exactly, and we'll be announcing it on Facebook too.
Okay, perfect. So so your Facebook page is live, and that's hopping too. So that's a good place.
Yeah.
And then you have a newsletter or email list that people could sign up for. Okay, awesome. So I'll put all that information in the show notes below. And then I have one other question for you, and this is a little bit different than normal. Because of COVID-19 and the current situation we're in, it's very possible that people are not watching this live, but they may find it, a week from now, a couple of days from now, or something like that, and they may have a question for you. With your permission, would it be okay if I toss those questions out to you, and then we just kind of add them to the show notes as this kind of develops?
Oh, sure. Be happy to do that.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And as more people become aware of the fact that they're stuck at home, not for another couple of days, but potentially more weeks, there's probably going to be some issues popping up. So
right. And I do have, if anybody's really kind of stressed about anything or has any specific questions, they can contact me and set up a free call, and I'd be happy to help anybody with any questions they have.
Wow, awesome. That's fantastic. I appreciate that as well. So, all right. Well, thank you, Kathy, for being on today. I know it was fairly short notice, but this just kind of snuck up on everybody, I think. So appreciate you being on today.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
You bet. And for anybody listening out there that wants to leave us a review, of course, we'd be more than honored to get a review on this, and any other information that you may need. Make sure that you check us out online, and we'll put all that information in the show notes below from today. So I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care.